This is video 3 of our code along for our virtual piano. In this video we're going to be working with JavaScript to add functionality to our piano key, so that when we press the key it will play a noise for us. So at the moment it looks kind of like a piano key on the page, but when I click it nothing happens. So I need to work with JavaScript to make that happen. We're going to be using functions and variables to make this happen. So these are quite big topics. We'll lightly go over them so we can add functionality, but it's a bit of a diving off point for you to go off and play around more with functions and variables. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function. A function in JavaScript is a set of codes, a set of commands that you want to run again and again, and you give it a name so that you can call it by that name or when you want to run those set of commands. The way we write this in JavaScript is we use the word function, then we use the function name, so I need to give it a name, so I'm going to call it piano key press. So you try to name it something that describes what the action is, so this is when the piano key is pressed. Inside here I've got brackets with an event. I'm not going to go through what the event is at the moment, but what the brackets represent are any inputs that my function requires. So if your function needs some information for it to work, it's inside these brackets that you would say this is where it needs to be passed in. I then open up some curly brackets, and this is the actual code that is going to be run when this function is called. For now I'm just going to do something really simple, which I'm going to say alert, and then some text, hello, and a semicolon at the end. The semicolon says this is the end of this statement. Okay, so when this function is called, it will have a little alert message will pop up the top saying hello. That's the plan. And I'm going to add a tab in here. So we use tabs in programming to show what block of code this line belongs to. So if this is indented by 1, it's highlighting that it belongs to its parent block here, so this function block. Okay, so that should make it a little bit easier to read. Now I need to trigger this function on an event. So I want to use when this piano is clicked, when this key is clicked, trigger this function. So up here I'm going to use the onClick attribute in our HTML. So onClick is when this HTML element is clicked, and then I'm going to say what I want to happen. So piano key press, brackets, this. Again, this represents the current scope that this is happening in. I'm not going to go into the details of this. It is quite something to unpack, so I recommend just kind of accepting it for the moment, and later on when you're feeling happier with what functions and variables are, then kind of exploring this keyword in JavaScript. I'm going to hit run, and now I'm expecting when I click this key an alert to pop up, and it did. Hooray. So you can see there's my text hello there. And just to make the point twice, you can go down here and change the text, add whatever you want in. Don't forget to run it. Hit the key, and there you can see my alert message popping up with the text that I've specified in there. Okay, so I know that my piano key, when it's being clicked, is triggering this function and this code inside the function. I don't want an alert to actually appear. I was just using that as a simple test case to make sure our function works. It's important when you're programming that you test regularly as you go along, because if you code for too long and then you try to run the code and it doesn't work, you have a lot more code to sift through to find where the issue or the problem is. So make your life a little bit easier by regularly testing this as you go along and doing small bits at a time. Okay, so now that I know the function is working correctly and being called correctly, I can actually kind of play with what's inside the function to make it do more for me. You'll notice down here in the JavaScript I've included a bunch of comments. Comments are usually grayed out in some way, and I've got a /* here and a /* down here, which represent the start and end of the comments. It specifies each step on these videos, so video 1, video 2, video 3, and so on and so forth. And then down here I've got some links to some sounds that I want to play on my keyboard. You can play whatever sounds you want. Feel free to grab your own ones and experiment and play. You can play whatever comes to your mind. these are just in case you don't know where to go to find some sound clips. So you can just copy and paste these where you need to use them, or use your own, up to you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this sound URL. So let sound URL equal, and inside the quotes I'm going to paste in that URL. Put my semicolon on the end. So this is a variable. So sound URL is my variable, and it's denoted by the keyword let. So let is a way in JavaScript to say I'm going to create a new variable, and this is the variable name, sound URL. So again, try to name your variable something relevant. So it's the URL for my sound. That's why I've given it this name, and I've set it equal to this text. So a variable in JavaScript or in programming is essentially a placeholder for information. So it's saying this sound URL is going to hold some information for me, and then whenever I want, I can assign that information to that placeholder, and I can change the information that's assigned to the placeholder as well. So now that I've created the variable, I'm going to create a second variable called audio. And I'm going to set up an audio clip in JavaScript. I'm not going to go into the details of how this works because this is using classes and objects, which is a later concept to cover. So again, it's just one of those things that feel free to go off and explore and play with classes and objects, but until you feel more comfortable with functions and variables, I'd kind of accept it for what it is, use it, and then come back to it later. So I've created a new audio variable, and it's a placeholder for information. The information I've created is a new audio object. And then the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say audio, so I'm referencing this audio variable, this placeholder, and I'm going to say play. So play is a function that belongs to this audio object. Okay, I'm going to click run, and now when I play it, it plays my piano sound. And that's it, that's my now functioning piano. Again, we're going to add more keys to this, and we're going to do more with it, but I have a working virtual piano, albeit with just a single key. So just to recap, I've created a function and given it a name, and this is a block of code that I want to execute multiple times on a particular event. I've used a variable to store a link to my sound. I've used another variable to set up my audio object and pass in that sound into the audio object, and then I'm using that variable to say, okay, play that audio object for me. And then in the HTML, I've used the onClick attribute for my key to call the piano key press function. And that's the end of video 3.